Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so this is the most... Okay, so you either like Charmers or you hate Charmers. I don't mind them at all. Charmers have been alive since the beginning of Go Battle League in the preseason, and they have dominated and destroyed you and me and took our elo multiple times. Anyways, this video serves as a analysis to what is or who is the best Charmer in the Holiday Cup. Now, the Charmer 2-Shield strat, or just Charmers in general, is one of the most oppressive strategies in all of Go Battle League. Give a Charmer shields, save it in the back, or if you win the lead with it, if it gets locked into something, a positive matchup, it pretty much just deletes the opposition. Good example is Altaria. What happens when you put Altaria versus a Charmer? Yes, Altaria is very, very bulky. However, it will still get destroyed by a Charmer. Now, there are several Charmers in the Holiday Cup. The purpose of this video is to analyze who is the best one to use for the Holiday Cup, and who has dominated the Holiday Cup overall so far. Of course, we're going to start with the first one, Wigglytuff. Honestly, this is probably my pick. Wigglytuff is one of the thickest, actually, it is the thickest, has high HP, and is a monster. As you see here, I'm not going to analyze the moveset just because, well, I'm not going to analyze it that deep. As you see, it has incredibly high stamina. And its ability to be a normal fairy allows it to actually tank those ghost-type Pokemon. So you have a very good shot against... Even if you do have an Alola Marowak in front of you, you could still charm it down depending on the range of damage. Just because only Bone Club is effective against you. And even though it does resist Charm, it also can hit you with Shadow Bone. Same thing with Frostless. Frostless has to hit you with Avalanches. It can shoot Shadow Balls at you. It's a very, very interesting and powerful Mon, which is a Wigglytuff. Very thick, very healthy, and if you can manage to land a charge move, it's even better. It has Play Rough, Dazzling Gleam, Hyper Beam, and Ice Beam. Great coverage, and as you see here, it resists Dragon Breath, does resist Ghost like I mentioned, Bug, as well as Dark types. In other words, Sableye really does not like this thing. Its only weaknesses are Poison and Steel. Guess what? Two archetypes that are actually very rare in the Holiday Cup. The only thing that actually fires Steel type damage, I think, is the Mirror Shot from Magnezone. Other than that, you don't see Poison and Steel, very popular in these metas. This is why Charmers run wild. The second Charm to analyze is the adorable, I call this Afro Charmer. This is the Whimsicott. Whimsicott is unique as it is a grass and fairy type. Whimsicott also has Charm, and it has incredible coverage. Now, the reason why Whimsicott's really good is not only does it sport a semi-decent bulky stat, obviously Wigglytuff is the bulkiest, however, the reason why it's bulky, or tanky in a sense, is because it can tank a lot of different elements in this cup. It can tank the Dragon Breaths, Dark, Electric, Fighting, Grass, Ground, and Water. A lot of these are very prevalent in the Holiday Cup, so you do resist all of them. Now, of course, it is weak to several things like Fire, Flying, and Ice, which are also prevalent typings in the Holiday Cup. However, matched up against the right matchup, this Whimsicott can actually just go to town against a lot of different typings in Holiday Cup. Which is why you might have seen it in some different teams. I've definitely faced a few Whimsicotts on my Holiday Cup. It hasn't been a very good time, okay, against Whimsicott. It's cute, it's adorable, it has an Afro head flower thingy, but dang. This thing's a beast. Next is Togekiss. Now, Togekiss is very interesting. Togekiss has, across Go Battle League, or I'd say across all three leagues, Togekiss has been a marvel. It has been absolutely one of the most useful Pokemon in all of the leagues, and it's still good in the Holiday Cup. Why? Because you actually double resist fighting. So Wigglytuff takes neutral damage from fighting because it's a normal and a fairy type. For Whimsicott, and especially for Togekiss, you resist counters so much that it's just nuts. As you see here, if we go on back to the Whimsicott matchup, you only resist counter, you only single resist counter. It's not double resisted. Because you take such little damage from it, it's very, very safe. And because of that, unless you're getting slammed down by Vigorots, it's actually very, very good. Along with that, you also resist Dark and Fight. You also resist Dark, so you pretty much wall Obstagoons if they're not carrying Gunk Shots. Well, actually, that's a good point. Gunk Shot is also another way out to kill Charmers. However, 9 times out of 10, because fighters normally die very quickly in this meta, or they won't ever get to the energy they need to hit Gunk Shot, you do just fine. As you see, you also resist dragon types, and grass types as well. So Venusaurs, Vine Whips, and Dragon Breath damage, you do resist that as Togekiss. So Togekiss is actually pretty useful as well. Next is Alola Ninetales. This is, in my opinion, the worst Charmer in this meta. So Alola Ninetales takes neutral damage from fighting. The problem is it doesn't really have that, like, coverage, I would say. So Alola Ninetales does lose to Fire and Rock types. Fire and Rock are 2 prominent types, which can actually do a lot of heavy damage. And because of those weaknesses, and because of your typings of a Fairy and Ice type, you take neutral damage from fighting. You also only resist Dragon, Dark, and Ice. Now, Ice can be good for the Frostless matchup. However, if it gets hit you with Shadow Ball, so you still have to be very, very careful. And against Obstagoon, Obstagoon can still hit you pretty hard, but it has Charm and it's very good. It also has the benefit of having Psyshock, which is the least energy cost move in this for I believe the least energy cost move for a Psychic type attack, because I think Togekiss with Ancient Power, it's basically the same thing, but yeah, you don't have the added potential, the boost you get from Togekiss. Instead, A9 has to settle for Psyshock. And again, you take neutral damage from fighting, and because of that, it also doesn't have like the thickest balance stat. It's actually, even though it has high attack, high defense, its stamina and attack are relatively the same. So it's definitely not as thick as Wigglytuff. Last and not least, since we are analyzing every Charmer, the most useless Charmer in this meta, in my opinion, is Sincino. Sincino is a pure normal type. What does that mean? That means you don't get the Fairy typing, so you don't get stabbed from Charm. The good thing about this thing is that you only take fighting type damage, or you're only weak to fighting. It is literally the only Charmer of all the Charmers that literally is weak to fighting. And you literally don't resist anything. You only resist Ghost, which... there's a lot of things around Ghost. And like I mentioned, because Charm doesn't get stabbed, you actually do less damage than every other Charmer in the game. Minus the fact that it has a high attack, but it's still not great. Now, it has Aqua Tail and Thunderbolt, so it has a very interesting moveset, but that's pretty much it about Sincino. I've actually used this thing in the meme team very long ago, where I use Sincino to essentially wall a Giratina and charm it down. Yeah, you can charm down Giratina O's in Master League with a maxed out Sincino. That's how you can tell I know how good it is. It's okay, but it's not the greatest thing in the world. And because you don't get stabbed from Charm, it's more of a liability than pretty much every other Charmer on this list. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into Charmers. As you see here, one of them's already in the top 3, and it's the most powerful Charmer in the Holiday Cup, in my opinion. But as you see here, it is Wigglytuff. As you see, Wigglytuff dominates anything with 2 shields, or can pretty much dominate anything with 2 shields. As you see, it beats out Altaria, Obstagoon, Vigoroth, Frostless, Stunfisk. It's also the #1 attacker in the lead. So if you see in the lead, here's Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is actually the #1 attacker. And as you see, Charmers are actually the #1 attackers in the game, because like I mentioned, there's not a lot of things that stop them. So, I'm only going to analyze the overall rankings. I'm not going to go into lead and closer, because generally what you do with Charmers is you literally just charm everything down. Charge everything, and if you get to your charge move, either break a shield or do heavy damage. As you see, Wigglytuff is the Dominator. Takes Altaria, Obstagoon, Vigoroth, Frostless, and Stunfisk. Vigoroth can have a way out against Wigglytuff, though, depending on certain scenarios. However, Wigglytuff in general is just a beast. Its bulk allows it to survive a lot of moves, and it does carry a unique moveset. Or, yeah, well, not really a unique moveset. Ice Beam and Play Rough. You have coverage against a few things. That's why you beat Stunfisk, and it's very, very good. Next is Whimsicott. I'm going to go look for these from search so that you can see it. As you see, Whimsicott ranks at number 17. Beating what I mentioned before, however, being stronger against things like Alolan Graveler and Stunfisk because you do resist Volt Switch as well as resisting Stun. Pretty much you're a pretty good hard wall to like Stunfisk and to Venusaur. Not really a hard wall to Venusaur, but you resist Vine Whips. Togekiss, as you see here, number 18. Togekiss is actually really good because it actually has such a dominant matchup against Obstagoon and Vigoroth. And Altaria. It can also beat Frostless. That's a nuts thing. Because it has Flamethrower, it can actually beat Frostless if you're able to take Frostless zeros and if you get enough energy. However, Frostless, again, it really just depends. Leaving Togekiss with shields is just monstrous. However, it also loses to Wigglytuff. And, yeah. It's the Charmer that loses to other Charmers. Well, a lot of Charmers, honestly, will lose to Wigglytuff because Wigglytuff is so thick. But as you see, Togekiss is very strong, especially against the fighters because it double resists them. Next, we have Alolan Ninetales. So we have Alolan Ninetales. As you see, Alolan Ninetales is number 16. Alolan Ninetales does pretty well against the rest of the meta, and it barely edges out the match against Wigglytuff. The good thing is, it has a pretty good matchup against Frostless, because it's able to just double shield and then charm it down, and you also resist those Powder Snows and Avalanches. Last but not least, we have Sincino. As you see, Sincino ranks at 175. Never use this thing, because it's just that bad. As you see here, it is the Charmer, one of the only Charmers that loses to other fighters because you don't actually get stabbed, and you just get destroyed by a lot of things. Don't use Sincino. You obviously know who's the worst Charmer is going to be on my list, and it's definitely Sincino. As you see here, Charmers are very oppressive. The Charmer 2 shield strat is so strong, and that's why Wigglytuff is in the number 2 spot. It basically, the only check to Wigglytuff, Wigglytuff beats everything below here, and the only thing that beats it is either whatever it resists, or like basically Vigor Out with energy. So that's why Wigglytuff is in the number 2 spot. Alright, as I always say, if you would like to donate to pvote.com, please consider doing so. Alright, so a disclaimer. I'm not going to go over this matrix, like, as long as I do other matrices, because there's really no point. If you don't know how to play a Charmer, I suggest you tap on your phone harder. No, seriously, tap harder, because that's how you play a Charmer. General strategy, give your Charmer shields, give it energy, switch out if it's a bad matchup, lock your Charmer in with shields, and just go to town. That's basically what it is. The purpose of this matrix is to literally just show you just the differences between each one and why Sincino is crap. Okay, so as you see here, I have the 2 shield, and here's what happens. You go to town against the meta. So there is a few minor differences as far as like the 2 shield strat goes. Okay, so you beat Shadow Aerodactyl. If you lose to rocks, as in Togekiss and Alolan Ninetales, you are going to lose against Shadow Aerodactyl in the 2 shield. Now, this is why Sincino sucks. You die to a lot of things. You die to a lot of things. So, here's the thing. Depending on which Charmer you use, you flip different stuff. As you see, Wigglytuff is able to beat Diggersby. It's also able to... Diggersby is also beaten by Togekiss because you resist Earthquake. And you resist Machop. Now, Lola Ninetales actually beats Dewgong, and it also I do believe it beats Lapras because you do resist those ice shards. That's basically why. So, there is merit to using basically Alolan Ninetales. There is merit to using Alolan Ninetales. If you look, Wigglytuff and Alolan Ninetales are the only ones that actually beat Lapras. Other than that, you beat a lot of the meta. Things flip depending on which one you use, except for Sincino. Sincino is Garba. As you see, it's Magarbage. As you see here, I'm going to go over Sincino, and you see, Sincino only beats Obstagoon, Mandibuzz, Lantern, and like 6 other matchups in the 2 shield. Everything else goes to town except Sincino. Don't use it. Anyways, as you see here, Wigglytuff and Whimsicott and Togekiss and Ninetales actually flip a few different things. As you see here, Alolan Ninetales loses to Whimsicott. Well, it's kind of ironic, just as you see how everything like lines up over here. The reason why you lose against Alolan Ninetales in the 2s is just because Alolan Ninetales can hit you with Psyshocks. So there's a reason. So let's just run this in. So as you see here, there's a reason why you lose to Alolan Ninetales. As you see here, it hits you with a Psyshock. Bink, 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 and it loses with like 1 HP. So, that's basically just what it is. As you see here, the damage, so there is merit. This can flip, this can be an IV to put, for example, if you don't have a good IV, for example, if you do this, you maximize your IVs, here's what happens. Bink! This is an IV dependent matchup. So, the Lola Ninetales matchup really just depends what IVs you have. If you have a good IV Wigglytuff, you can flip the Ninetales matchup if they have a really crappy Ninetales. So, that's what it is. There you go, the secret to the Lola Ninetales 2 shield. This is why technically Wigglytuff does beat Lola Ninetales, because you should have a good ranking. Otherwise, you die to Charm. So, as you see here, you're going to lose to Steel types. You're going to lose, you lose to Steel types, and yeah. Other than that, as you see, Wiggly is a beast because Wiggly literally destroys a lot of the meta. You beat Talonflame, you beat Whimsicott, you also beat, well, Wiggly is the Charmer that beats most other Charmers. And as you see here, you also beat a wide variety of other things in the 2 shield. Which is why Wiggly's such a beast. Wiggly is boss. Now, there is merit to using the others as well, especially Togekiss. However, you'll see more of that when we go down shield scenarios. So, in the 2 shield, you see that's 2 shields. Here's the 1 shield. Oh, wait, no, that's no shield, not the 2 shields. Okay, 1 shield. There we go. Alright, here's the 1 shield. As you see, Wigglytuff still dominates a lot. It kills a lot of things. It beats a lot of the meta. With the exception of Lola Ninetales, Lola Ninetales still beats Dewgong. Togekiss will still beat Diggersby, because like I mentioned, ground, you resist ground. However, Wigglytuff also beats Drifblim, where no other one does. It also comfortably beats Frostless. And you also beat Alolan Graveler with Whimsicott because you do resist those Volt Switches. In the 1 shield, as you see, Whimsicott has a lot better against Alolan Graveler, Lantern, etc. because of the grass typing. It also is able to take on lone Ninetales, etc. And as you see here, Wigglytuff is able to beat Whimsicott, while every other Charmer does, and then you get a simultaneous knockout with other Wigglytuffs. And basically, it's just, in the ones, I would say Whimsicott is probably your best bet, only because it covers a lot of the other mental things. Ninetales also has merit because, again, you do cover Lapras, etc. However, Whimsicott does lose against Frostless in the one shield, so there is consideration for that. Now, the reason why you win with Togekiss, everyone's like, why do you kill it with Togekiss? Because Togekiss just does so much damage. Also, you have Ancient Power. As you see here, you need a shield to beat it. But as long as you have a shield, you can take it out and you can come at its matchup with energy. You beat it in every scenario except the closer, because Frostless will end your life with Avalanche. Or shield advantage. If it has that or shield advantage, then yeah, it's a very dicey matchup. The closer, this is where Charmers get really dangerous, so you're going to see a lot of negative matchups. You still beat a few things like Altaria, Driplims. Every Charmer has its specific matchup that it beats, as you see here. With the exception of Sincino. Sincino actually loses to everything except Shadow Aerodactyl. Literally, the only matchup you beat in the closer with Sincino is Shadow Aerodactyl. So Sincino's useless. Well, it's not useless. It's just 99% useless. Well, 90% useless, I'd say. As you see, there's a lot of things that flip around, etc. Depending on which Charmer you use. Whimsicott and Togekiss do happen to be Diggersby, so it's really what your team, what you want to cover, etc. Whimsicott also covers, again, a lot of other elemental ones, especially the electric types. And this is where the closer is, I would say, Wigglytuff's worst scenario. As you see, you don't have a few matchups. As you see, the closers that pick up the most bulk are probably Alolan Ninetales and Whimsicott. Those are the two ones just because of all the possible elements you can encounter in a closing scenario. With shield advantage, this is when everything just goes to town. As you see in the 1-0s, you beat a lot of things. I don't even need to show you. You just block it and then you just go and then you charm down. Depending on which one you have, some matchups will flip, like Alolan Graveler, Magnezone, and Sandslash. Well, even Charmers. Well, Charmers don't have a good time against Steel types. That's all I have to say. 2-0s, guess what happens? You beat practically the entire meta. Well, Wigglytuff beats the entire meta, including the Steel types, in the 2-0 scenario. That's why you save your shields for Wigglytuff! Sincino actually does the same thing, except if you look in this video, Sincino loses most matchups out of everything else. You lose against Vigoroth, Whimsicott, and Wigglytuff, while Wigglytuff loses against nothing. Whimsicott, Togekiss, and Lone Ninetales lose to at least one matchup. As you see, very, very powerful. Now, the 2-1 shield, Charmers are still incredibly powerful. As you see, you're still able to charm down a majority of the meta, with the exception of things that probably resist you or have very thick, like Dugong, Lapras, unless you're losing a Alolan Ninetales, as you see here. So each Charmer does have some merit, but it's really situational. Overall, it seems to be that Wigglytuff is the beast and is able to do a lot of damage. You can also, yeah, so Wigglytuff is amazing. So I definitely recommend Wigglytuff. Again, the other ones do have use, however, don't use Sincino. It's very situational. This is why the double Charmer strat actually works, is because you can put Wigglytuff is powerful enough, but if you put another Charmer in the back and catch the right elements, you actually take out a lot of the meta, and can take out a lot of meta. So it's a very destructive strat. Alright, so if we're going to... Okay, Wigglytuff is the best Charmer in the Holiday Cup, okay? I'm just gonna say right now. There's a reason why it's at number 2. Wigglytuff is the bulkiest out of all of them. However, here's a good description of why. Go over here to the Holiday Cup. In the 2 shield, look at what the only thing that, like, if you look, okay, so 89% of the 2 shield, right? You literally killed 90% of the entire Holiday Cup in the 2 shield, the even 2 shield scenario. Against Whimsicott, 84. You see how it starts going lower and lower? Because Wigglytuff is a beast, and as you see here, Wigglytuff also doesn't have damage with Play Rough, etc., to where it's going to actually threaten your opponent. Wigglytuff has Ice Beam, and it has Play Rough, so you get stabbed with Play Rough, and Ice Beam can do some coverage damage against a lot of other things. You can even bait a shield with it, if you decide to do so. Now, the worst Charmer is obviously Sincino. Sincino is horrible, don't use it, you don't get stabbed with Charm, etc. Perfectly defined why it's really, 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 really bad. So, as you see here, Togekiss. As you see, overall, literally Wigglytuff just dominates. Except for Sincino. As you see, Sincino, in even shield scenarios, just loses. You lose so many matchups, it's ridiculous. You even lose against the fighters, ironically. You're going to lose really hard against the fighters in the 2-2 shield. But Wiggly is the best just because, as you see, overall, literally against the entire meta, it does super well. Wiggly with 2 shields also beats a vast majority of the meta. As you see here, you go to 2-0 scenario, here's what happens. You beat 97% only, losing to literal poison types. No, seriously, if it's not a poison type, you're probably going to kill it. Including steals. So, just another example. The second best one's probably Whimsicott. Or A9, depending on how you look at it. And if you go to the 2-0s, as you see here, you lose against 11 matchups, losing to fire types. Yes, Wiggly with 2 shield can actually take down can take down a Lola Marowak. So, just because it resists Shadow Ball. So, and Shadow Bow. So as you see here, there's no real with the lack of steel and poison typings are things that just resist it in general. This is why the 2 shield charm set's so viable in this meta. Lack of poison, lack of steel, so you don't have things like G-Fist or Registeel running rampant like normal Great League to really stop Charmers from really going off. That's the problem. So that's why if you take out steel typing, the dominant of steel typings and poison typings, that's why Charmers are so good. And that's why, unless you have a poison type or you're using Venusaur or something, that's why using it's just like really interesting. It's just what it is. 2 shield charm strat for a long time has been incredibly dominant. In the counter cup it was dominant. In this cup it's just as, pretty much, I would say it's worse in this cup just because lack of poison types. Very lack of poison types. Like I said, Venusaur or Shadow Victory Bell is probably the 2 most popular ones. Anyways, I hope you guys liked this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Again, this is the Charmer analysis. Again, this is probably the safest meta Charmers I've ever been in, so that's really good. If you still want to use it to climb a few points, there's a reason why you see a lot of Wigglytuffs in the lead, because Wigglytuff's just that good. Or if you see a double charm variant or a triple charm variant, it is good in this meta. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.